Hello traders, welcome to another YouTube Live. So in this one, we're going to be doing an analysis on Bitcoin as well as the overall cryptocurrency market, looking at the different alts that we normally do. BTC has definitely taken a nosedive to our key area of support. We'll talk about that shortly. But what we're going to be going over today is Bitcoin first because it is the king, it is the market leader. And then we'll go over to the two pairs right here, Ripple or XRP, and Link or Chainlink, and then BNB, which is Binance Coin, EOS, and then we'll end off with Ethereum or ETH, ETH. So like always, we will start off with BTC, and if you have any questions, please drop a comment below, and we'll be sure to answer them as they come in. So we'll start off with the weekly here. Hasn't closed. We still got a day left until this weekly closes. We're not seeing more buy volume come in. Like last time, yesterday, we talked about the lack of buy volume coming into the market, and we're seeing just that. We're seeing a decreasing amount of buy volume coming into the market, and that was a pretty hard rejection there. So there's not a whole lot more to talk about because there hasn't really been a real candle closure on the weekly. So we'll just go right and jump into the daily here. So one thing to note, we will have a gap here. It seems like because we're currently at around the 89-ish $100 zone, which is right around here. So we will most likely have a gap in the CME futures when it does open to the upside. So the gap fill pattern would mean that we could see another push to the upside, which would then be in confluence with the overall market structure we're looking for, which is entering on the higher low of the pattern. Now, with this pretty significant rejection, in my view, I think the first take profit will definitely be at the high that we've recently hit, but we will see how the price reacts to this current support that we're holding. Now to the Gemini exchange on, again, the daily chart. We'll just talk about market structure a little more and discuss what we could see kind of in the near future here. So, or what we're planning for and whatnot. So we have a descending zone that we've been holding as we've been talking about for a while, and this is our potential resistance that we're going to be holding. Now, we are at our previous level of resistance, which is going to be a new support. So we are looking a little bit more long because it broke the market structure and formed a higher high. And now this is the higher low that it is currently forming. So at this point in time, we are seeing a potential move to the upside appear, and we are somewhat aiming for that because we made a dump to the downside. That is a bearish engulfing candle. Now, we don't see a tremendous amount of sell volume coming in, although we do still have a little over 4 hours left on this daily candle. So we'll see how much volume comes into the market when this does appear, but overall, I still think the bias I had or have been having still holds true, and it makes sense, and I'm going to be sticking to that until the market tells me otherwise. On the Heikin Ashi, we see significant volume, but nothing crazy. I think the price action in this case shows a lot more clear of a picture, so we won't really be incorporating the Heikin Ashi at this current stage because we are, unless you are going on the smaller time frames, and then we might want to know when the momentum might be shifting back towards the upside. I think that would be a good way to use the Heikin Ashis at this point. But what we're kind of looking for is an entry from this area back up to the highs here, retesting that zone as a nice level of resistance again. And yeah, it might not sound amazing, but that's maybe a 3%. And if you're risking 1% or 0.8, obviously that's a pretty great risk reward. And it would be a good retest. Now, there are some situations where we could just hold this resistance right here, so we do want to take profits beforehand. But on the shorter term day trading outlook, I do think that we could get another pop because it was a previous level of resistance, which is now testing as a new level of support. And then also going to the 4 hour, we see that ascending trend line that we talked about previously in the videos before. We did adjust it a little bit, changing our anchor point to fit the current price action a little better. But what we can see is the price is still holding above our previous resistance. We see candle closures on the 4 hour on Bitfinex at 89.35, and then the next set of candle closures is 89.47-ish. So right now the price is barely holding above that zone. We'll see. We got still 13 minutes left till the candle closes. It does look like it's going to close a little bit below, but we'll see how it reacts to this zone. We might have to adjust this ascending trend line a little bit more, but At the end of the day, I'm still looking at this zone as a potential level of support. I would need to see the price make a significant low, much greater below, or much like significantly below this resistance zone or the new support before I look in a more short bias, because then we're entering back into the range that we were in, which then could mean that we would then drop at least to the mid-range zone, even to the support zone, because we had a higher high, we failed the higher low hold. This would be the higher low hold, which is a more bearish indication because we failed to make a higher low, breaking now down within the consolidation back into the now potential market volume distribution phase, because potentially it could have been an accumulation with the higher high, but the higher low, if it does fail, could become a distribution phase, which then would mean that we could see a potential move to the downside. So we do have to keep in mind we're in a pretty critical zone right here where we are in. So it just matters if we're going to hold or if we're going to fail, pull back, retest this resistance around 89, and then now trend and continue this consolidation. Which then, at that point, if we retest this $8,900 zone again, like for example, let's talk about this with oops, give me one moment here. So if we talk about market structure, this is the consolidation that I would need to see the price start to enter before I look for a potential short opportunity right here. So it doesn't need to exactly hit the mid-range zone, which is our gray area right here, but I'd ideally like to see the price break below the zone right now. Like if we actually close where we currently are, I'd still classify that as potentially holding a level of support. I don't want to make a judgment and say, okay, this is a little bit below where I personally put my horizontal rectangle, which means it must be below the support. Well, not necessarily. I could just move it a smidge and then it'll be supported. So I need to understand that there's zones and I need to see what's actually happening before I make my judgment. So we'll zoom in on the smaller time frames. The move just happened. I think we'll get some level of a consolidation, and that's where we'll look for the volume. We'll look at the candlesticks and we'll look at the smaller time frames to see what we can analyze on the smaller time frames. But for now, our bias is still holding this zone unless proven otherwise. Now, this does mean that if we do see indications of a long, if we do take a long, like if it starts to trend up, and then if we see a second higher low form, previous resistance, if there's something that is able to provide us that there is a level of bullish pressure, and if we do get it wrong, well then if we make it push to the downside, we can then look for potential pullbacks, because we're probably going to make a move back down to the support here, because we're already now within the consolidation that we were previously in. So we've got a couple options. I do think that this higher low is still in play. I don't want to disregard that too quickly, but if it does fail and if we do break down and form a significant low lower than our previous level of resistances that we saw right here, then I will be definitely looking for more short bias, because we're close to the resistance area that we held within our consolidation right around here. So on the 4 hour, that's my plan. Not going to discuss too much into the 1 hour, because that's basically exactly what I'm thinking for my overall outlook. We can see the price has broken below the zone. I moved it a little bit, but we can see now it's potentially going to hold this level of a resistance within this zone right here. So looking on the 1 hour, you could potentially argue that yes, it is both below the ascending trend line, which we can see right here. I did move it. The initial anchor point was right here, but then I moved it to this point, and then I moved it to this point, and then moved it to this point, decreasing it each time, and each time it kind of gets broken because this is an unconfirmed zone. I'm not mainly using this zone. I'm trying to understand the horizontal zone and also actually see what's here. Looking at the recent price action, seeing how it's reacting to the current zones that are being plotted on the chart. That's just basically not mirroring your trend lines and seeing what works, because it is currently unconfirmed with only 2 real touches, and this would be a third. So I'm looking for an area of that zone where it's holding as a resistance support. So that's what I'm looking for right now. Not trying to make any choices either long or short, because it could hold as a support, as a false breakout, holding this level right here. We've seen it in the past hold before, so it's not like there's not a zone that the price couldn't hold. That's definitely a valid zone that the price could be gaining a level of buy pressure. But then also just looking at the technicals, where I've plotted them now, we see this is kind of the lowest point of an anchor point. I don't really want to put it anywhere else. Theoretically, I think you could put it here, which we'll try after we talk about it right now. So we got our anchor point right here. We got our first touch, or second touch, not our first touch not including anchor point, second touch in total, and then we got our second interaction here where we're definitely getting some interactions. We got a candle to close right on that zone, making it a type B, and then right now we're getting a type A retest of that zone with, we still got 9 minutes, but looks to be a significant no demand right at that retest. But you know, you could argue that this is a potential short opportunity if you're just looking at this trend line, which is not super confirmed. But then if you're looking at this horizontal zone as well, making a zone of confluence for sellers to be located. But in my personal opinion, it makes more sense to really see the price extend further out, validating that it's within our zone of consolidation, and then we could potentially see that retest come in where we might have another entry coming up here. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. I don't want to front run the market. I want to go with the flow. I want to see what it's telling me. Right now, there's an indecision right there. I don't want to prematurely enter a market without me getting any sort of validation that the price is either going to go to the upside or downside. So right now, we're just waiting. But like I said before, like we've been saying in the previous videos, my overall bias is a little bit more to the long side because we've been making a low, a higher low, a higher low, a higher low, and then this is a high, and this is a high, this is a higher high. So right now we're making a higher high, and this could potentially be a higher low. And then right now, we're also going to incorporate that other trend line that is using this anchor point right here. So let's just see that zone as well. So then if you're looking at another zone, this actually lines up pretty well perfect. I'm just going to delete this one for now because we know where that is. And now we can see, let's just play around with where it is here and see where it could be the most validated. Got another anchor point right here, and then if we get, I really like that area. So that's going to be my area right there. That's going to be my ascending trend line that we could possibly see the price hold. And then we're going to put a projection zone because we see the anchor point, and then we see this very clear type A with the wick just touching the zone, and then we see another type A, we see a couple type C's, and then we see a type B with the candle body closing right at the zone. So we see our anchor point, and then we see our first touch, and then our second zone of interaction, and then this is our now fourth zone, including the anchor point here, making it a valid zone. So for me, I am going to put that projection to the downside because we do have wicks protruding below our area. But right now, you know, it wouldn't be bad to see a little bit of an ascending triangle form here. And then if we are able to make a new higher high, and if that higher low comes in, for example, if we just put a triangle kind of like here, and let's just talk about it within market structure because this is a potential opportunity. So we can see this anchor point, and then we see our first interaction type A with just the wick touching that zone, and then yet again when we see just the wick, we see wicks a little bit below the zone but still respecting that as a support, and then we see the candle body where this is the body, and then you see the wick below it, and then the line is holding the body of the candle. So we see that it's a pretty well respected zone, and then yet again right now we're seeing just the wick touch that area and reject instantly off, seeing buy pressure within that zone. So we know that this trend line is a well respected range, but we also know that just by looking to the right, or sorry, to the left, the price has been respecting the top of the supply zone here, this resistance area. So what we could potentially see is we're getting a squeeze from the higher lows, anchor point, first level of reaction, second level of reaction, third level of reaction, and then we're going to get potentially higher lows like we saw here. We were making higher lows at this zone right here, as we can see. We made a low, and then a higher low, and a higher low, and then a higher low, and then we blasted off. So we could be making these higher lows here because the price is holding an ascending trend line. So with currently how the two trend lines are positioned, we got a ascending support and a horizontal level of resistance, potentially creating a ascending triangle pattern. Now, what we would be looking for in this particular circumstance ideally would be to see a market structure where if it is holding this resistance multiple times, we'd like to see the price break to the upside, hold a market structure higher high, and then make a higher low where we see a low, a higher low, and then we want to see that higher low hold. Now, this would also be in confluence with the higher low structure on the larger time frame on the 4 hour, where we're seeing a higher high, oops, and then a low, and then a higher low. So overall, that's the market structure. And then looking on the smaller time frame, that is also what we're looking for as well. So overall, not going to do anything just yet, but that is my potential outlook on BTC if it does start to consolidate within this range. That's what I will be looking for, is for the price to squeeze from this ascending trend line into the horizontal level of resistance around 89.70 or even 9K, and then seeing what the price does. If it does fail and break to the downside, we would be looking for a lower high, potentially even retesting that resistance zone again, validating the resistance area, really signifying that we're within the consolidation. If that occurs, well then, of course, we would be looking for shorts to the downside, because then that would be a confirmation lower high, as we can see, and then we'd be looking for a lower low, because that was a low, this is a higher low, this is a lower low, and we'd be potentially seeing a lower low from there. So we've got a couple options here that we're looking for. We need to see the consolidation start, and then we're going to look within the consolidation to see what we can find. We're not in a crazy rush to be entering a trade here, but we have a couple options that we could look at and have some sympathy plays for the different alts that we're looking at within the market. So that is the overall BTC market update. We're going to quickly look at the longs and shorts. See a little bit more buy pressure from BTC, but not a whole lot. And the sellers are basically non-existent as of right now as well. A little bit of an uptick, where we're seeing a little bit more sell pressure or sell activity, where the traders on Bitfinex are opening more short positions on margin, but they are opening more buy positions on margin as well. So not a huge change, not a huge discrepancy, but there's a little bit more activity and a little bit more shorts that are opened on margin on Bitfinex. Now for our last analysis for BTC, this is going to be the short and long percentage. So it's going to be out of 100, 50-50, depending on buying and selling. So let's just take a picture here and then talk about what we're able to identify. So first things first, we can see on the 24-hour, which is right here, we're definitely a little bit more short heavy, which makes sense. We just took a dip to the downside. On BitMEX, 51.5, Binance, 52.5, and on Bybit, 52.2, all to the short side, and then it's out of 100, so then it would be the opposite for buying. And then for the 1 hour, it is a little bit more to the long side, but there is a little bit more it's pretty even on Binance, with basically 0.5% discrepancy. On BitMEX, 50.24, 49.76. So not a huge discrepancy. But on Bybit, it's definitely more weighted to the long side, 60% long and 62% long and 38% short. So definitely more weighted to the long side on Bybit, but it's pretty well even. There's not a crazy discrepancy between the buying and selling going on within any of the exchanges that we're looking at. So that is the overall analysis for BTC. In that said, we will use this to then kind of project a view on the different alts that we're looking at, because Bitcoin is the market leader. Bitcoin is going to be the #1 asset we are looking at within the cryptocurrency market. It is going to be the #1 asset that is going to move other assets within the market. So it makes sense to look at the largest market cap coin within the crypto market. It just makes sense. If you're not doing that, you definitely should if you are trading alts. So now let's go and do our crypto market update, because that was the BTC analysis or Bitcoin analysis. So then we'll start off with XRP and then move through the different alts that we are currently going to be looking at. So Let's start off with the daily, because that is definitely a good place to start off. So we can probably delete this because we don't really need it. So we can see we're holding this nice ascending level of support. Right here, we see an anchor point, very key level at the low, and then we see our first interaction with that zone, and then this is now the second interaction with that zone, and we see a very, very tight consolidation that we're currently in a range in. Right now, it does look like we're creating higher lows and higher highs, which is great. I'm just going to refine this a little bit more, just within the previous price action here, because it does look like we've definitely created a potential higher high, and then we could even be holding a higher low. Now we do want to see what's in the more recent price action, but overall, after the head and shoulders massive dump to the downside, it does look like we are holding this level of support here. Now we are holding an ascending trend line. If this does break, we will be looking for short side exposure, definitely, because we know that the momentum is to the downside. This could be a nice little wedge pattern. It does look like a little flag, and if it does break this ascending trend line that's holding the higher lows, then we definitely will be looking for potential moves to the downside. Especially there is a level of confluence for support here, where it's not perfect, but we can see back here we've held a level of support, turned into a resistance, turned into a support twice. And if it breaks this zone here, we have a pretty high probability chance of testing the low, which would be a pretty significant move. We can see it's like 15-14%. Might not catch all of it, but even if we just catch the meat of the move, that is still a great trade that we could be looking at. So let's look at the smaller time frames now that we've discussed the larger ones. We do see that we are still currently holding a level of resistance. I will actually just redraw our zones just so on the 4 hour they're a little bit more well defined, and I'm going to do multiple zones instead of one larger one. So I got that zone right there. Pretty happy with my current level of resistance. Don't really need to move that. I think I'll change the support a little bit. Resistance is fine up there, like so. So I'm currently happy with the 4 hour chart, how it's looking. We got a ascending triangle pattern here, so if we break to the upside, we want to see if there are buyers in the market. We see that we got a fake out right here where we got to push the upside. We got one injection of buy pressure, and then we came back down, not seeing the second injection of buy pressure. Right now, it does look like there is a little bit more volume distribution, but as time goes on, as the price continues, we might see a little bit more buying come into the market. But right now we are seeing a reduction in buy pressure, and we're seeing a little bit more increase in sell pressure after hitting that resistance and aggressively pushing back down to our level of support here. So, we got a level of support right around here, which we're currently coming into right now on the 4 hour chart. So let's discuss that on the 1 hour. And in the prior price action, we did draw a ascending trend line connecting this zone right here, like so. So if we're kind of consolidating and come to around an area of support where we got many supports coming together, that might be a possibility, but I think at the end of the day, it makes sense to see what BTC does, because it's still very early on, and we might hold this consolidation for a while, and entering right before a long drawn-out consolidation is never obviously something that any trader wants to do. You want to get in before the move, not before the consolidation. That's obviously not good, because you're just sitting in chop going sideways for who knows how long. That's not a fun situation to be in. So on the hour chart, I think I'm just stick with the 4 hour. I have a really good idea of market structure on the 4 hour and how it's looking. So we're currently coming down to a level of support here. If we get a good interaction, let's just see if we do look to long at that area of support, and if we're coming to the final take profit at the top of our consolidation, that's around 5.5 to 6, maybe 6%. So I should turn off that alarm. So this basically means that we could be looking for opportunities to alongside if the price does come back down to this level. Now, right now, the price is currently at a mid-range area within the consolidation. I don't want to trade anything really within that mid-range zone. I either want to see the price come to the level of support, like we can see right here. I want to be looking to long around here to move to the upside with my stop loss maybe below here, or maybe below a recent low once it's validated and then potentially made a new high. Or I'd be looking for shorts up here, or stop loss here, because I don't want to be, because entering a long or short within this kind of, maybe not that high, but entering a long or short within a range that's kind of like in the middle of the zone is very, very challenging, because you're going to get both pressure from buyers and sellers within that middle of the range there. So for me, it just makes more sense to have the wind against your back, to know that if you're shorting here, you have the wind against your back, aka you have sellers close to you. Or if you're longing at supports, like we see right here, the higher lows, you have the wind against your back because you have buyers right underneath you. So if the price does dip a little bit below your entry, you have a good chance that buyers are going to pick it right back up. But then if you're right in the middle, where you don't really have much of an advantage. So being patient for an entry that is lower or higher is a really good opportunity within consolidation. So right now we're in a mid-range zone. We're not going to touch it. We're not even going to look at it. We're going to see the price hopefully comes to maybe around this zone here. Then we may get an interaction, and we might be able to get somewhat of an entry if we get a nice wick or candle closure and we get some more bullish volume, or get a double bottom, or get a bullish engulfing candle, something that signals that there is buy pressure within this area. Then we can look for a potential opportunity for a long here, take profit at this zone, maybe 50% or even more, because it's a consolidation. If it breaks above, that's phenomenal. We'll have our next zone right here, and if not, we'll probably just come back and then test this ascending support again, which obviously would mean that we'd want to take a decent amount of our profits at this resistance. So obviously we're not entered. We don't want to have a whole trade plan set up in place, but we do want to have a good idea of what we're doing if this does come to our potential area of entry at this zone here. So we'll see how it goes. That's my basic analysis for XRP, and we're not really going to go in more detail than that, because if this comes back up here, I don't really want to short just yet. If it comes down here, then I'll be looking to long. We'll see what else the market has for opportunities for shorts. But at this point in time, this looks like a little bit, for me, a little bit more of a long for this zone here, coming back to this area. So that's my analysis for XRP. Link definitely, don't know if I'd be looking to instantly short, but as we can see on the 4-hour time frame here, also this green area is a previous market structure high on the all-time high that we had, so it's a very significant zone. So instantly we can say that this is a demand zone. Buyers are most likely going to be in this area. We see sellers making a triple potential top here, with two tops right here making a double top, and then it broke this ascending trend line, making a lower low right there, and then it recovered pretty quickly, back climbing right to the all-time high here for a third time, breaking it, but then the candle closure actually closed below the zone, so that was a little bit bearish, where we see the candle close all the way back there. But at the end of the day, we're still seeing that high get tested again, which is a pretty significant strength for the bulls, seeing a strong move to the upside here. And now we are testing our ascending trend line that we've been holding since late February here. So this is our anchor point, and then we got our first interaction here. So we've only really had 2 interactions with this zone, so it's not a very confirmed area. Now what we could do is we could look back and see, okay, is there another area where we've tested? Well, I don't think there is. So we can only say that there is only 2 points where this has been confirmed. So we'll look at what's happening right now within the current price action, but we do have to keep in mind that this may wiggle, this may change like so. I think what I will do is actually just put a projection there, because that is the very, very end of the wick, and then I'm going to open it up inside towards the price. So now we got a nice ascending trend line, not really confirmed, with a very significant level of resistance at around $4.87. You can see it's pretty well respected throughout the chart. Could clean that up a little bit more, which I think I will. Just going to delete this, put that right at the bottom there, and then move this a little bit higher up. Might change my anchor point depending on how things look here. So that's the widest point. Yeah, I think I'll keep it like this. And then we get our projection. Close it above. So we've broken below market structure as well. This is that previous market structure level of support. We've broken below it, and now it looks like we're making a lower high. We can also potentially find a zone of confluence holding a descending trend line like so. So if we're able to potentially come to this zone, give me one moment while I draw my projection here. So we got quite a significant area of confluence with a triple confirmation of this zone on the 1 hour chart for Chainlink right here, where we have A, the descending zone, creating the lower highs. We can see that very clearly. B, we have the ascending zone, anchor point right here. We have our, not super confirmed, but we got our anchor point and our second level of interaction. And now we broke it and we're holding above this zone right now. So it could be a third interaction that we're currently holding. If we get a little bit more of interaction, obviously that is great because it validates that zone even more. And then lastly, we have our horizontal zone that is creating our third level of validation that this is going to have sellers at the zone. So right now, it's looking like a great opportunity for an entry around there for a short on Link. Obviously, we want to see the price action confirmation at this zone, but that is my analysis. Stop loss above here, first take profit here, here, here. I don't know if it's going to come all the way to here, but we'll see how the market goes. But in my personal view, an entry around somewhere in this zone will be pretty phenomenal because just in terms of TA, there's a lot of confluence at this area. So it just makes sense to have a high probability situation trade right around here because it's making a lower high. A lot of confluence, made a triple top. Consolidation, this is the distribution phase, and this is now the markup, or markdown phase, and this is going to be the retest of the distribution phase before the potential markdown phase will occur, coming back down to the lows here. So, you know, this could be a pretty phenomenal trade here. If it drops to the lowest point that I kind of am expecting, it'd be a 25% drop. You know, to the mid-range zones, it's 7% and 14%, so we got a lot of opportunity here. I do want to see the price climb up a little bit higher, retesting that zone a little bit more, but Link is definitely going to be on my radar for a potential short. Now, in that said, we do know that BTC is still a potential long because this is a potential place for a support. So if that is the case, we may have to take an L on Link because for me, Link is a potential short because of the zone of confluence. If it does fail and if it do enter, well then so be it. We do have other opportunities in the market like XRP. If it dips down below here, we could be looking for a potential long. So we have different trades for different pairs in the same market. So we are hedging our opportunities, so if the market does one thing, we're always going to be prepared. And the market can kind of only do three things: either go up, down, or sideways, not really moving much. And we're prepared for all three cases with both of those pairs. So good to see in XRP and Link. And then now we're going to go on to EOS and BNB. So close that again. So EOS has been respecting our lower highs here very well on the 4-hour chart. It wasn't perfectly respected for me, so I did draw a projection zone, which is this zone right here, and then also a descending trend line as well. So I didn't know exactly which one was going to be respected. I wasn't really thinking of shorting at this point because I didn't know exactly which way it was going to go, but I just wanted to see which one was going to be respected. Both were, but then I think I'm going to end up just deleting this descending trend line and going with the projection zone. So we see anchor point right here, lower high, lower high, lower high. And then we're making trend line, and then trend line. So it is looking pretty favorable for a potential short if we break this zone because we see that it's happened over and over again. One thing to keep in mind is the descending trend or the ascending trend lines are getting less steep. So like, for example, this support was very, very steep as we can see, and then it broke to the downside. This one was less steep. I think that I drew that a little so we can see it's kind of like right here, right? line, retest right here. And this one was a little steeper, where we got the break right at that point right there, and then that was kind of the trend line there. So it's less steep, and then now we're getting an even less steep ascending trend line, which is meaning that the supply is weakening. It's going and making very aggressive pushes to less aggressive pushes, because the supply is weakening. So we're getting from solid pushes to then weakening pushes, and then forming lower lows into a potential level where we're going to hold a longer term support. So right now we could still have an opportunity to move to the downside 100%. We got our anchor point. We got 1, 2, 3, 4th. So we got, yes, 100%. It is a dependable zone that we could use if the price does go below it. I am going to delete this zone, or actually even move it. I'll delete this zone because obviously we don't need that anymore. And I think I will change it to this area right here, where previous resistance, as we can see, new level of support. So it's a pretty key level on the chart. And if we're breaking that zone, I'm definitely going to be looking to potentially short the market, and then also just going to refine this trend line a little bit more, like so. And then on the 1 hour, it's a little bit more well defined. So basically what we're going to be looking for on the 1 hour, structurally speaking, we're already making a lower low. So all we're kind of needing is the price to break our zone of confluence that we currently have, because structurally this is a consolidation. We made a lower low. What we could see is a lower high right here, because this is a high, this is a lower high. That said, I'm totally all right with it, because then that will validate our support one last time, because we have our anchor 1, 2, 3, and then if we kind of make a lower high respecting this zone, well then that just validates my area as a new level of support even further. And then we make a lower high, and then we're going to hopefully see this previous low break, and then once we see the previous low turn into a new resistance, hopefully, that's when I'll be looking to potentially take my entry. I am going to be pretty patient, but this pattern is occurring over and over again. So we want to ensure that, yes, we've already made a lower low, but I personally want to wait until this zone of confluence gets broken. And if that means that we have to wait until another push and then a pullback, I don't mind at all. I don't mind waiting for that to occur before I look to enter, because this is a very respected ascending trend line on a bearish momentum move, with a high probability that if it does break our zone of confluence here, we're going to get our lows tested at least here, maybe even to the wick or further down. So we want to ensure that we're taking profits. We do see that there is a strong level of support where we just see the wicks go below this area. So we want to ensure that if we are risking a certain amount, we want to be making sure that our risk reward to this level right here is potentially going to be 2 to 1. So then we are managing our risk rewards. So then minimum I think the price is going to go down is at a point where I'm okay with taking profits, because it's a pretty strong level of support. We don't know if it's going to go dropping further down, so we want to be able to understand how much we're risking, so then we can understand the risk reward that we're able to capture if we are correct in our decision making. So that's EOS. Happy with the overall setup, but not going to enter just yet, because we are still looking for the things that we talked about before. Actually, if one other thing, if we do actually make the climb all the way back here, that is, again, a confluence zone, because we see, if we really wanted to, we can go to the 15-minute chart and probably just draw this zone somewhere around there. So this means if we get a bullish push, like if this pushes to the upside and we get a bullish push to around this zone, this is also a zone of confluence, because we have the descending zone and we have an ascending minor level of support, creating a zone of resistance as well. So we'll see how the price reacts. Right now, I'm not really looking to enter, but we'll see how it goes on the Sunday. But mainly, if that ascending trendline breaks, I'll definitely be looking to short the market. So next one is going to be BNB, or Binance Coin. So let's start off with the daily. Just making sure the live is going smoothly, which it is. No questions from there just yet, which is not a problem. So what we can see on the daily is definitely significant amount of bears coming in, pushing the price back to its level of support, but we're not seeing a tremendous amount of volume come in. And also, this could just be still a nice pullback to validate the previous level of resistance as a new level of support. Zooming out a little bit further, the current area we're in is respected as a level of resistance and support in the past, so it is a key level that we're currently at. So just looking at the daily, we're holding a consolidation, a level of support. We had a descending trend line that we can see hold the price with anchor point 1, 2, and 3. So that if we just push it down a little bit, so now it's a valid zone. It's a dependable zone that we can use. And then let's just put a projection at this area. Maybe not crazy, but something like this. So now we got a level of support right there. So we'll see how the price reacts to this zone. This zone we can potentially shift like so. We'll see how the price reacts to this area, because we could shift it to that zone. We're not really capturing this area here, but I still classify this area as a potential level of support. I don't want to say I'm bearish just yet in the market, although on the 1 hour this was way more respected right here. Oh, that could potentially work. That was a little bit more respected, but on the 4 hour, that is probably the best place to put it. I think I'll leave it there and see how the price reacts to this zone. And then also, if we do make a move to the upside, just something to consider. Right around here, we do have 3 touches of a descending zone. So on the 4 hour, what we could see is a nice little squeeze here. We don't exactly know, but I don't want to be too long biased, because we do see that there is a descending trend line connecting the lower highs, as we can see within the top consolidation, and it's pretty well respected. So just keeping that in mind. And I kind of want to do something with this trend line because it's not perfect. What if we drop that down here and then move this? I'm a little happy with that, actually. I think that's going to That's how I'm going to put the current trend line. Not perfect, but you know, we'll see how the price reacts. You got it 1, 2, 3, 4. I call it just 1, 2, 3. So, and then I'll just put a pretty big projection because we got pretty wide ranges here that we're working with, pretty large areas. But it's pretty well respected overall. We'll see how the price reacts to this consolidation range because we've got a lot of zones interacting within the same area. So we want to ensure that we're not entering when the price is starting the consolidation. We want to enter when the price is completing its consolidation. And obviously, it's not easy to pinpoint that, and it takes time, and we're not always right. And obviously, you can't always be right, but that is the end goal, is we're wanting to look at the consolidation and try to understand when it will start shifting and changing momentum and breaking out. And right now, I think we're just about to start this consolidation. So we'll be very patient. There's no rush to get into the market because the market will always provide opportunities, especially if you're trading on smaller time frames like the 5-minute, hour chart, like kind of in between there. You're going to be, you know, the fight is making sure that you're not entering too much. That's the big fall for me anyways, is over trading was a challenge for me when I started. So the challenge as a young trader was to try to cut out as many shit trades as I could. And that took a lot of patience and time in trying to find zones of confluence and writing a criteria if it's not in it, you know, cutting out emotion and all that stuff. So it takes time, but building trading characteristics as a skill like patience and the ability to have grit and completely shrug off losses like they're absolutely nothing is something that you can only build over time. You can't teach someone that. They can only learn through their own trials and tribulations of becoming a trader. So we can show you how we effectively try to help ourselves in the process, but you know, at the end of the day, we can only give you the information, but you have to implement it into your own life. So anyways, strong move by Ethereum here. Massive bullish push like we saw. We held a level of support at around 214, and then we really were able to capture that strong bullish push from around 228 to 245. So not exactly to that zone, but we did capture that strong move there. So very happy about that. Zooming out a little bit further, we do see that there is a strong level of resistance at around the 287. Looking at the weekly, we can see, yes, it's a very strong zone, very significant area that we got a massive rejection off of. So knowing that we are getting a pullback, less volume coming in, we've got a day left, but looking at the weekly, look how strong this level is, right? So we have to keep that in mind. This is a pretty big double bottom. And this is a strong level that we need to break in order for us to actually really see bulls entering the market, in my opinion. So it's around $300-ish is where our current resistance is. And we're kind of coming up to it. And right now we're seeing a consolidation right here. We broke to the downside, and now we're coming back to the consolidation. So looking at the daily here, here's that consolidation. Let's just delete some of the stuff here because let's just kind of start from scratch. We can keep that and delete all those. So the consolidation is right around here where you see the buyers and sellers are fighting both from the resistance and the support. The sellers won, the bears won, pushed the price to the downside. Now we're needing a pullback, and this could potentially be the pullback. So we got a good move to the upside. That's great to see, but on the weekly and daily, it's not looking phenomenal potentially. Now, it's a matter of if we're going to break this resistance or not. That's the big question, right? But at the end of the day, it's going to follow what Bitcoin does. So the Bitcoin analysis is going to be key. And at this point in time, we're still holding a descending trend line. I think we will potentially come back and break this ascending support. So I can't project my bias too far in ahead and too far in advance, or else it's just not healthy to try to predict the market. You're trying to understand the story that it's telling, which is obviously very different than trying to predict it. So overall, I think the consolidation was a distribution phase. We got a massive bearish candle to push the price down. This is a pullback. We're seeing decreasing buy volume come in when the bullish push and when we're making higher highs and higher lows, which is a weakening of the buy pressure. And we saw a decent rejection here. So in that said, we're just going to delete some stuff here and kind of start off fresh and see what we can identify. So let's just put in our horizontal zone right here. Respected very, very well. That was the final take profit zone that we were kind of looking for right there, where we took profit at that top there. So we're seeing the price right at that zone. We got another range right around here that we're working with, which was our previous resistance. And we got our last zone right around here, which is our last level of support, before we probably dump down pretty significantly because we'll be breaking the ascending trend line and the horizontal level of support. And then our main level of demand is going to be right around here, 161. We see back in September and the fall of 2019, there's a strong level of support, 3 times, very well respected. We broke to the downside, respected as a new level of resistance, and broke down. We hesitated to push up. We pushed up. We held above the zone, pulled back above the key area, and then held the previous market structure support as a new higher low, and then we blasted off. So it's a pretty key area that I think we could hold. And we also have another one that we did delete, but it is this zone right around here. Same thing, key level of resistance within the chart. So we got a couple zones that we could be looking at, but right now we're at a high here near a key level of supply. So we'll see how the price reacts. Looking at the 1 hour now, I think we could draw another potential trend line right around here. Let's just see if that works, not precisely. I don't love that. Not going to incorporate that in the analysis. We do have another one there. Got 1, 2, and now the third interaction with this trend line, which is good. So now we got a longer term trend line, which is this, which is the outline of the market structure in the larger time frames, and then we got a smaller term trend line right here, which is holding the higher lows, because we got a higher low here, higher low here, higher low here, and now this is a market structure higher high. It's just a matter of if we're able to hold the higher low and push the possible higher highs, although this is a pretty key area of supply. So right now, like BTC, we are forming an ascending triangle pattern, holding a level of a higher low and a consolidation resistance area where we're not able to push above an area. So as of right now, we're just pushing closer to the apex, and we'll see how the price reacts. If it breaks to the upside, more bullish; breaks to the downside, more bearish. But at this point in time, we are just waiting for the consolidation to break. So that is the analysis of the cryptocurrency market. I hope you enjoyed it. Right now, we are just in consolidation, but there are definitely some opportunities in the market that are looking like great setups that are coming in the near term. Link looks like a phenomenal short if we do get the price to come up a little higher. XRPs, if it does dip a little bit, a good long, but not a phenomenal trade. BNB is not something that I'm looking at right now. EOS is a good trade if it does break to the downside, in my opinion. BTC, like I said, in that consolidation, and Ethereum, we just talked about, is in that consolidation as well. So I hope you got something out of this. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments section below. Hopefully next week will be another great week. Going to stick with our rules. Going to be very, very, very patient, and going to basically wait until the best opportunities for us to be entering the market. So yeah, not much else. Hopefully everyone has a good weekend, and until tomorrow, have a good one.